Okay, good evening. We'll go ahead and call the Planning Commission meeting for September 26th to order. Mr. Shivers, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Fellers.
Present.
Commissioner Hackler. Commissioner Leeson. Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner McLaren.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Tetrick.
Here.
Commissioner Watson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Is there any questions or comments amongst the commission? Okay, if there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. New business.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you mind if we did item number 2 first this evening?
Well, that's fine.
The plat.
Okay. Okay, we'll do item number 2. Mr. Shivers, would you introduce that, please?
Sure. Tonight we have the preliminary plat of Central and School Road Commercial Estates Edition. And what this does is it creates 5 new commercial lots, 4 residential lots, and dedicates right-of-way for 2nd Avenue. To give you a brief overview, the part of the plat that I have up here on the screen, it's pretty difficult to see all the lots when I put the whole plat on the screens. These 2 lots here are formerly part of the Prairie Land Estates Commercial Edition, platted back in 2005. It was 1 large lot. It will now be 2 lots. Notable things on it is the western lot has a lot of floodplain as well as a New Star pipeline, mostly floodplains. The eastern lot has a large New Star pipeline easement going across it. And both of these lots are zoned C1 general business. On the southeast corner, we've got 3 new commercial lots. The 1 large one up north is the 4.2 acres and 2 small outlots down there in the south end. These are previously unplatted lots. And last but not least, on the north end of the proposed subdivision, we have 4 new residential lots. These are already zoned R1 low density residential, prime for single family development. And this also shows the 2nd Avenue right-of-way dedication. It'll connect the school road there on the east side. On the west side, the right-of-way has already been dedicated with the Prairie Land Estates 2nd Edition back in 2007. So we're really just connecting right in between there. So this plat, after review, it does meet the zoning and subdivision requirements, and we recommend approval of the preliminary plat. If approved tonight, this is something that only the Planning Commission approves. This will give the applicant the go-ahead to prepare the final plat, which will then come back before you guys for a second review. If that is approved, the City Commission will then accept all easements and right-of-way dedications, and it'll be recorded at the county. And so with that, I'd like to invite Tim Crockett up. He's with the engineering firm that prepared the plat this evening.
Thank you. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Tim Crockett with Crockett Engineering Consultants located in Columbia, Missouri. I think Mr. Shivers did a good job, a thorough job explaining the situation tonight. It is a preliminary plat for R1 and C1 zone property. We do have the intention of developing one of the commercial lots for an Orchland Farm and Home. The existing facility in town, they've outgrown that facility, so they want a larger facility, larger building, along with some exterior storage on the site. Very nice facility. They're going through quite expansion here lately, and this is one of the locations in which they want to expand their brand. The other commercial lots, pad lots out front, and the commercial lot next to it will be for sale if someone wanted to come along and develop those as well. The R1 portions to the rear of the development, as Mr. Shivers indicated, would require an extension of 2nd Street down to Southern Avenue, or Northern Avenue, I believe, from School Road. And so along with that would be 4 residential lots on the north side of that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the preliminary plat tonight. With me is Ron Volsky, who is with Orchland Properties, who can answer questions regarding business operations if you have any of those. We want to make sure we address any concerns that you may have, even though it may not relate to the plat, but nonetheless, we want to make sure we answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to have it cleared up just a little bit.
You don't come back up front, please?
North of 2nd Street, those residential lots,
Yes, sir.
are you gonna sell them or?
Yes, the intent is
To be sold.
to be sold, correct.
They're gonna leave them alone.
As residential lots.
as residential?
Yes, we're not asking to rezone those lots. We don't want to expand the commercial area into the residential neighborhood any more than it's already
So
there.
The commercial part will go from, what's that street on the east side?
School?
School,
Yeah.
School,
yes,
clear to Boyer Road.
that's correct. It's already zoned commercial, correct.
And then they're gonna divide it into how many lots?
There's, on the preliminary plat, there's 3 larger parcels and 2 smaller outlots. In reality, one of the larger out parcels, as indicated by Mr. Shivers, has a lot of floodplain associated with it, so it's really not very developable.
Okay,
And then one of the other ones has the pipeline that runs through it, so it's limited on how much can be done there.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So who pays for the cost of Second Street? Does the
That's
city abstain that?
That's the cost of the developer in this case.
Yeah, I met with Scott beforehand. They said this was on the developer. Yeah.
On the developer?
Yeah.
Which are these guys, or
Yeah.
Orchelon?
Yes, sir.
Where's Orchelon gonna locate? Where's it gonna sit?
It's going to sit,
It's right here. on
Here we
this-
go.
Yeah.
You see the 2 small pad lots to the south, those fronts are close, they're out along Central Avenue, and then Orchland's gonna sit directly behind them. So it's on the easterly side of the property, more toward the north.
So those 2 plots are set out next to Central, then you could put a standalone building. They're gonna sell those to some
Potentially, yes, yeah,
commercial outfit that may want to come in and put a building in front of them.
correct. It'd be a small, they're relatively small in size, so it's not gonna be a large building in front. It's not gonna screen their, or shield their view. It's gonna be a small out parcel, so we don't anticipate it being a very large user. And then, of course, any user that they would sell it to would be a complementary use to the Orchland facility.
So where's the main entrance to Orchelon gonna be?
Come off of School Road.
And School Road doesn't need any work or addition, it's ready to go?
Not that I've heard that there's any plans to improve or needs for it at the moment.
Yeah, it's a relatively improved road as it is.
Right.
That'd be a separate issue from the plat.
And it would,
Right.
yeah. The school road isn't technically part of the subdivision, but, related question.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions for him, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
No public hearing for plats.
Okay, good, even better.
So with plats, the way they operate is that it's just subdividing, dedicating easements right-of-ways. And as long as they meet the zoning and subdivision requirements, then you are actually obligated to approve it. Yeah.
Super.
Now, of course, rezoning and special use permits, there's a lot more to debate, and
Sure.
it's not as black and white, but plats are. So they either meet the requirements or they don't, in most cases.
Sounds like an exciting project. Fill a void out there.
Yeah,
So if this is approved, what's the dates of, what are your dates that looking at starting, completion?
We'd like to start fairly soon, to be honest with you. Once this preliminary plat gets approved, we're authorized to go right into the design phase of the development. So we'll come back into the city with our design plans, our civil design plans for grading, erosion control, drainage, water line extensions, street extensions. We'll come in with a set of design plans to the city for approval and then start construction right away. It's anticipated construction will start this fall.
Great,
Wow.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I guess I'd entertain a motion, but I mean, we kind of have to, right? Is what you kind of just told me? More or less?
and of course, occasionally if there's issues, obviously if there's an issue, it probably would have come up at this point, or if there's a point in the ordinance that you read and think that it doesn't fall in line with, and that'd be, good reasons to table or deny it for one reason or another, but, short of those cases, then more or less moving towards the approval.
Okay,
I move to approve the preliminary plat of the Central and School Road Commercial Estates Edition as presented.
thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Shivers, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Fellers.
Yes.
Commissioner Long.
Yes.
Commissioner McLaren.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Chairman Tetrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you.
Good luck, fellas.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
They'll be back at our special meeting, is that correct?
The plan right now is October 24th, I believe, depending on when things are, depending on these two gentlemen over here, Mr. Crockett, Mr. Cutzinger. I will find that out shortly, what day they'll go to.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 1. Mr. Shivers, would you please introduce that?
Yes. All right, at 105 North Arthur, we've received a special use permit application for a vehicle storage yard. Defined as an establishment engaged in the outdoor storage of vehicles, recreational vehicles, travel trailers, boats, etc., and may include impound lots, which we have a lot of, and then other uses include vehicle rentals, on-site self-storage units, offices, etc. So this is a very small lot, about 9,600 square feet, a little bit less than a quarter acre. A lot of the criteria we go by with special use permits. We're not looking at any new structures tonight. We're really looking at the use of part of the parking lot. So no new structures, no new setbacks. Has access to all utilities, police, fire. So there's not a lot of concerns about that, but this is a unique case. With the applicant, Mr. King, so he does work on vehicles in his recreational time. It's one of his hobbies. We have a lot of people that like to do this in neighborhoods, in their houses, and it's no problem doing it in your garage and things like that. But we also have a number of places that we advise. It's great to have your hobby, but you really need to do this outside a neighborhood in a commercial or industrial district. So that's what Mr. King's doing. We're aware right now, and I didn't put this in my memo, but I've been talking with Sarah Hagan, our code enforcement officer. She's been working with Mr. King over some code enforcement issues, the way it's more or less overflowing with vehicles right now, if you've seen it lately. What we've discussed with Mr. King and Sarah Hagan and those people, we're looking at, I use this term loosely, kind of a compromise. This lot's not a prime real estate lot on West Central, but it's also not deep into the neighborhoods. So what we'd like to do is do this vehicle storage yard permit with 2 conditions. The first one you saw in the memo, it includes screening that the applicant has offered. So this would definitely keep some of the stuff from sight as he works on his projects in the evenings. The second would be to limit the storage yard area to only the paved area behind the screening. So as it stands today, that would include Mr. King removing a number of vehicles and things from the property. But under these conditions, he could continue to do what he's doing there in a much more limited space and screened from public view. So like I said, this is a bit of a unique situation. It's something that we certainly discourage and pursue when we find in neighborhoods. There's a lot of people in town with automobile-related hobbies. And so Mr. King's, since working with our code enforcement officers, working to meet the rules. This isn't the only rule he's in violation of. So tonight, with the denial of the permit, Mr. King would have to clear off all his vehicles, clean up the parking area. If approved with the conditions, then we would do the screening and limit it to where it's at, and he could continue to do that. And as far as the other codes that he may or may not be working with or in violation of, he's working with our code enforcement on. With that, I'd like to invite Mr. Kevin King up to talk a little bit more about his property.
Hello. Yeah, originally, I assumed that it was a commercial property.
Can you go ahead and state your name? Just for,
My name's Kevin King.
Thank you.
I actually live off of North Atchison, so I'm here in town. Originally, it was a commercial property, came up for rent. I since rented it because, not knowing, I assumed that commercial property, I can just park vehicles there, and have since found out that I can't. I have collected a large number of vehicles. I'm working on getting them in repaired condition and possibly sold so I have less, or getting them to a scrapyard so they're just gone. I have some older vehicles, some longer term projects, and some of those are back there. And that's kind of why I got this. It's just something I do evenings, weekends, and my buddies will come over and we'll work on vehicles, motor swaps, transmission pulls, that sort of thing. I don't do it, I know it's commercial property, I don't do it as a business. I don't, foresee it being that. It's just something that I enjoy doing in my off time. And since I've been working with Sarah, I found out, well, she suggested if I was able to screen it properly and get the proper use permits, that may alleviate the problems that she's having, and I kept everything back behind the screen and used the front just for vehicles that I'm driving in and out on a daily basis, so.
Okay. He had mentioned the second part to that, only parking on the paved area behind the fence, and that's something you're okay with?
Yeah, now there is a gravel drive back there, because on the back half of that building, there's a garage door. So I do have, sometimes a vehicle parked that, right there, and sometimes I'll be able to pull it in, work on it, pull it back out. But for the most part, yeah, on any of that asphalt is perfectly fine for me.
Sure. Did we have anybody that wrote a letter or anything either way, in favor or against?
I sent out the notices. I did not receive any calls, no letters, nothing like that. Now, what I did notice when we did the letters is that there's a number of rental properties around this. So a lot of my letters were going to Wichita or other states, and that's usually a telling sign that we're not really going to hear too much from the owners. Now, how this all got started is that Sarah did receive complaints about the sight of all the vehicles out there. And so that's kind of what caught her eye to it and started working with Kevin on getting things cleaned up and organized. So while the neighbors in response to mine didn't respond, that's how the ball started rolling on this.
What is this zoned right now?
What?
What's the zoning on it?
This is C1 general business, as well as a property to the north and the west. In this particular block, and usually especially use permits, I don't do the zoning map. The commercial zoning extends into the block a little ways, even though some of those are residential properties. At some point in the past, they were rezoned to commercial for whatever reason. So technically, the commercial zoning does extend northward over those residential properties.
So say we approved it. I know you said you don't want to do it for a business, but I mean, could it be done for a business since it's already commercial, or does the special use permit affect that?
Yeah, it could be, but the thing that's interesting is the size of the lot. We do have vehicle storage yards, but this is by far the smallest one I've seen. So if someone wanted to buy the property and carry this on in the future, yeah, you could park some vehicles or boats there, but you're not gonna fit a lot. I mean, the whole property itself, including the building and the front parking, is less than a quarter acre. So it's almost the size of two little residential lots combined. If it was a larger property, I would have a concern about
Sure.
that.
So for clarity, for me, if we approve the special use permit and our applicant then sells it, the special use permit goes away and somebody new has to,
On commercial properties, it would stay there. Now, if that happened and the next person in wanted to do a hair salon, after 12 months of not doing a vehicle storage yard, the special use permit sunsets. It's gone. But like I said, a lot of the vehicle storage yards people, they want more space than this. And I don't even know what level of profitability it'd be to just cram 8 vehicles back there. And they're not covered either. A lot of people in town with the lake nearby have boats and they like covered protection for them and stuff. So.
Did I
Mr. Shivers,
understand you to say that you were renting?
Correct, yes.
You don't own the property?
I do not, but I have permission from Donna Nails. She owns it, and if I could get this approved, I do plan on purchasing it from her, but there'd be no point in me purchasing it if I can't, do my stuff on it.
Doesn't the landowner have to,
We get written permission from the landowners.
oh, there is written permission?
Right. Now, on this particular one, the written paper's coming. Actually, Miss Nail's out of town for a while now.
Yeah, she's in Arizona.
So it's something that we will get before this goes to the city commission, or else we won't. But this is pretty normal for us to have the owner and an applicant sign, so. And I speak with Donna Nail somewhat regularly. We'll have the permission regardless of the ownership before the city commission. We won't make a final decision otherwise.
so I've noticed the big giant Winnebago out front, which is 15 feet from the street.
Correct.
Are you looking to have vehicles like that there?
Maybe that one, but that one I would actually move right up against the building, because that's what we use, we take it out to the lake. Because that one's fully running and operational.
And Jay, how close to the street can you park a vehicle like that?
As long as it's on a paved parking space off the right of way and on a commercial property, there's no setback for parking. But in this case, I think it'd be prime to put behind there in the storage area, because I'm guessing 6 days of the week, is it stored?
Yeah.
Are you on the, okay. I would have it behind the fence in this storage
And
yard
that would be
area,
my intention.
not out
Because if I
front.
was a property owner there, I would call the code people too to ask them.
And people have, yeah.
But see, I mean, the thing is, in a residential area, they can park it in their driveway. Now, like
Right.
in my neighborhood, we have covenants that prevent that, but most of your lots in town don't. I mean, so you could, if you wanted to, you could just.
If he
park
wanted to
that-
move it to his house,
He could.
he
Yeah.
could, as long
I
as
do
it's
have a long
on.
enough driveway that I
Well,
could.
yeah,
If
that's-
that became
yeah.
the issue, then
Yeah.
I would just move it to my house.
Well, and really what we're talking about here is the screening and bringing into compliance of demonstrated inoperable vehicles.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, he can still utilize the front of the eastern portion of the property outside of the new proposed screen wall.
Correct.
To the right of way, as long as it's as long as it's not a vehicle that's in violation.
Right.
Which means it's basically operable. It's not on jack stand, it doesn't have flat tires.
Licensed.
Yes.
Licensed,
Yes.
insured, correct.
And Sarah's
those-
very sharp on that.
Huh?
So those,
Yeah.
that's really what we're talking about with the stipulation, is getting the non-operable vehicles that are out of compliance.
The ones I'm
but-
storing
but
long-term.
behind the screened, fence and on suitable, paved surface.
So I'm relatively new to the commission, so I know there's the gas stations there that's not really there functioning anymore. I don't know if there's anybody there at all anymore.
There is. Yeah, that's where the lawn mowing people are right now.
Yeah, Rick's Lawn Service.
Okay. What about if a fast food restaurant wants to come in and find a place and buy that and build that? Will that be detrimental to them wanting to build a business that's gonna generate a lot of taxes?
Detrimental to who?
Detrimental to them wanting to buy that and coming to town? Because that's, could be considered to be a piece of prime real estate.
You're talking about the lot to the south?
Right.
Right there on Central.
Well, I think what we're dealing with is the most unsightly portion of this, and that's the vehicles. From the south, you just see a building and some open parking.
Okay.
So, and you know, a lot of fast food, they have their set criteria when they go look for these lots. So, you know, I couldn't speak too well for them.
Okay.
I drove by and looked at it, and I'm not sure, point out to me what is paved and what is not paved. I couldn't tell from the road,
You can use this mouse if that's, you could use the pointer.
please.
It's paved all the way, because this is a little dumpster area, and it's paved right to this line here.
What,
And then gravel was right back here, because the garage door, the back garage door is right here. And it's a roll-up garage door, and there's a tree here, but it's gravel,
okay,
overgrown gravel, but it's gravel there. But the asphalt stops right here along the dumpsters.
oh, from the front, from
From front,
Arthur
yes.
Street?
Yeah, it's
It's paved all the way
This
from Arthur
It's
to
paved
that,
all the way to about.
to that dumpster.
Correct.
Where is
And in
your-
front of the building is paved.
Correct, yes.
That building, 2,100 square foot building, do you occupy that? Is that full of your
Yes.
tools?
Well, it's got tools, I've got some motorcycles in there, some other stuff that I don't wanna leave outside that, the weather would damage a lot more. I do have a couple vehicles in there that I'm tearing down completely and rebuilding from the bottom up.
How long have you rented this property?
A year and a half. Oh, yeah, about a year and a half.
Do you have any painting operations there?
I don't, because a painting booth, I'd have to have ventilation and stuff like that. And this is an older building, not quite equipped for that, because any dust in there settles on the paint and it just,
Okay.
so.
Do you park, and I know a lot of these storage structures park trucks and trailers out in the street. I don't go by that street much, do you?
I don't park trucks, if I do, it's because I'm loading or unloading, but I don't leave them.
You don't leave it on the street then? To me, this property seems more residential than commercial and recreational. I mean, when I did drive by that street, to me, it appeared residential.
What was there before you started renting?
Directly before me, there was another guy who was doing the same thing I
Let's
was.
say, I thought I've seen cars there for a long time.
Yeah.
And before that, Bert Potter had his,
A plumbing was there, and then before
Business.
that, I think was a church. Yeah, this front half right here is not garage space. That's carpeted. It's got, you know, 2 doors entering. The garage is just this back half here. But I do, you know, my smaller motor stuff, I can sit down more comfortably in that area.
This existing fence, is it a privacy fence?
Yes. This back part here is a rock wall from Gerald's Automotive, over here.
Yeah.
It's got, I think, a 4.5 foot rock wall that you can't see anything because there's a bunch of trees that line it. And then along the residential here, this is a privacy fence.
Hog Wild didn't have anything to say about it when you sent him a note.
We don't usually get responses from the fast food places. But my understanding is a number of the complaints that we received were actually people hitting the drive-through at Hog Wild or parking behind there and getting a view. So my understanding is they're the ones that have been contacting Sarah about it, some of the drivers.
So you're not proposing a new structure to house these
No.
motorcycles, cars, and all you're gonna do is put a fence up?
Screened up fence, correct, yes. So that way it's no longer a visible eyesore.
Jay, would you restate those compromises that you were suggesting?
If we move towards approval, my recommendations were a 6 or 8 foot fence, up to you guys, and then limiting the vehicle storage area to the paved area behind the screening. The gravel area, you know, the codes say if it's well maintained and existing, that you may use it for parking purposes. You know, that can be up to the discretion of the planning commission if you'd like to include that or not. But I think the key is limiting the area on the property and screening it.
I agree.
So we can still park cars, trailers, campers between Arthur and the new fence?
No,
That would
He
be
can't.
no. So that would be where, when he goes there in the evening to work on his vehicle, he would park his normal daily vehicle there. Or if his friend helps him, that's where they would park.
But
You know,
that's
like-
where the Winnebago's park now.
Well, that's why I was mentioning that it should probably go behind the fence. I mean, if it's gonna be a storage area.
I was gonna say, the Winnebago is actually
But-
parked
yeah.
right here along where the fence would be.
In the fence line.
Yeah, I'm correct. It's like right on where the fence would be, so it would actually be moved behind the fence line.
But technically, since it runs, it could be parked anywhere. I mean,
That is true.
I know it's bad, but that's how it's
Registered-
written. As long as
registered,
it's,
operable.
yeah, it's operable and it's, you know, registered and
And he's not living in it.
he's not, yeah. that
I'm
you
not-
can pretty much park it anywhere, you know.
True.
I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's how it's written.
How many vehicles would you anticipate would be back there behind the fence?
After I cleaned out everything, 8 or 9 probably.
How many are there now? How many do you have on the property now?
14, I think. Some of them were bought as part vehicles to fix existing ones, and yeah, I have an abundance of vehicles, and I have been working on
I
getting.
guess the concern I'd have, you're right there in the fast food district, and you have all these vehicles which vermin could get in and out of, and it could become a habitat for them. I've seen that in the past. Have you?
I have not experienced that at this property. I understand, yeah, I've had vehicles I've gotten off of a farm and
Sure, exactly.
mouse and under the seats and the wiring harnesses and stuff like that.
Mr. Shivers, help me understand the property directly north. Is it still zoned commercial?
It is owned commercial, but being used as a residence.
So the screening requirements do or do not apply because it's commercially zoned. You're not requiring them to screen their commercial property from an adjacent commercial property. So,
You know, I wanna say the wording in the ordinance is by the neighbor zoning, not the neighboring land use. Now, the thing that typically triggers that are building permits and rezonings,
Right.
you know, the triggers for requiring the screening.
Yeah, this really is about helping this leaseholder, avoid non-compliance with inoperable vehicles.
And that's part of it, yeah. I
So-
mean, it's trying to, almost a compromise between what's required and, yeah,
Right.
so.
For reference, that, since I'm looking at this map, is that lot behind this one to the west, is that the old Gerald's Auto
Yes, it comes all the way around.
facility back?
Yep, right here.
And did that just get sold?
I believe it did just get sold last week.
Is that
For
correct?
sale
I didn't even know
signs
that.
down, people are moving stuff in and out.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's got sold and finalized last week because the for sale signs came down and people are
Yeah,
taking
I
stuff
know
out of the
that,
building.
driving down Central.
They're
Is that
moving
gonna
some
be a
stuff in.
commercial property then? Do you know what's gonna happen to it?
I haven't heard a peep
Okay.
about it.
So you can only access it from North Arthur, you drive everything
Correct.
in from there.
And we have a number of commercial properties in town that people will purchase, and if they do something, you know, you never see, it's innocuous, a thing like this, you know, if Kevin was just working on a few cars inside, we'd never know about it, we'd never have a code enforcement issue, you know, and so we have a number of buildings around town that you don't exactly know what it is until someone comes in and says, I'd like to do this. What are you doing there now? Just because you don't see things, they don't create problems, and it's on a commercial property, and so.
So what exactly is the code enforcement issue? Is it the unoperable vehicles?
I think that's one of them. I don't know. I think there was a few things on this property, and as far as some of that, the special use permit was one way to fix part of the problem. So if it's denied, then Mr. King needs to move as get them operable, move them out of the way. He continued to work with Sarah or find a different location. So this is one avenue that was the number one in the priority list to pursue. Is we have a problem with these vehicles, but it's also where he works on things. Like I said, we don't want this in neighborhoods, so this is the first thing. If this doesn't work, then Mr. King will work with Sarah on some other resolution.
Yeah, on one hand, I always hate to, give people forgiveness when they didn't ask permission. But if it was that way when he took it over a year and a half ago, then I would kind of see how he could think that it was already allowed.
And honestly, I mean, if he's putting up the fence, I think that's gonna cover,
So-
most of your vehicles aren't gonna extend above that, and no one's even gonna know, and then he's in compliance, and, I mean, it seems like that would benefit all parties. I look at the other commercial lot, the chances of somebody buying that for a restaurant, to me, are slim to none. I mean, you've got Goodings, the old Goodings place on the other side of Hog Wild that, has been for sale, and, I think just putting a fence up would solve the problem.
What kind of fence are we talking about?
I recommended to him a privacy fence, something that's opaque, that, we're not gonna have large openings to see the very thing we're trying to screen. And he's volunteered 6 or 8 feet. I think whatever you guys think is best.
I think 8 feet would stand out, honestly. I think 6 feet would, that's gonna cover almost all of your vehicles, other than your RV, which runs anyway, so, it's neither here nor there.
Mr. Shivers, what if my neighbor wants to work on a car in his yard? Okay, do we have an ordinance that you can only have so many cars in your yard at one time?
Are we talking about on the grass, Brad?
I'm talking about on the grass.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Those are the easiest, yes. So for one, it's actually in the zoning ordinance, you have to park on hard surface. Gravel if it's existing, or paved concrete or asphalt. So first off, you can't park on grass. And if our code enforcement officer sees it, you get a surprise in the mail. So that's one. Now, as far as, my understanding is you can do limited maintenance at your house, you can change your oil, do things. Now, when your car is sitting on blocks for a couple weeks, that's when things, I believe, get considered inoperable and letters go out. I'd have to have our code enforcement officer clarify the fine line between I'm just maintaining my car versus, when it's considered inoperable.
But you, or
but there are rules.
Put a hoist in the yard and
Yeah.
pull an engine,
No.
no, okay. That's not allowable, really.
Right.
That's not legal.
Right. And we have a number of people in town who have garages, and they have equipment in the garage to maintain their vehicles. And that's common everywhere, but we also have a number of people that want to maintain more than just one or two that they fit in their garage.
Right.
And so that's when we start saying, find an industrial property, some type of warehouse you can do it inside, or just, can't be done in a neighborhood. You can't line up your driveway with inoperable vehicles that you plan to fix over the year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna differ just a little bit on the 6-foot fence, because I think you got Central, a lot of people come in on that. I'd like us to consider 8-foot fence on the south side, and I don't care what the height is on the other side. I do think there could be something that can come in 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road.
He's not putting a fence up on the south side.
My building blocks everything from the south side.
Yeah, the only thing it's gonna
Oh,
be
I see.
is the two
Gotcha.
sides.
Is there a security concern? I mean, does a law enforcement officer want to be able to quickly look over a 6-foot fence if there's some sort of disturbance in there and they need to pay attention?
I couldn't speak to their concerns.
Do we have special procedures we need to go through in order to actually allow an 8-foot fence? 6 foot is typically allowable.
Right, planning commission's the only board that can approve an 8-foot fence. Yeah, this is the way it's worded. So in this instance, we can add it to the special use permit. Now, I can't go back to my office and issue 8-foot fence permits.
Right.
So as long as you guys, as part of your conditions, or it's its own separate special use permit, then you guys have that authority.
Okay, well, let me come back then to the east side then, because I do eat hog wild once in a while, and I do think that looking at vehicles, lots of vehicles don't look good. I would propose an 8-foot fence on the east side, and I don't care about the other sides.
Mr. King, what do you want to install? An 8-foot fence or a 6-foot fence?
Either one at this point. I haven't purchased any material to buy it yet, because I was waiting for a decision either way. I can install an 8-foot or a 6-foot fence. Because I'll be doing the installation myself, I'll be getting all the material myself and taking care of that.
And Donna Nail's okay with the fence?
Correct. I spoke with her before I even filed the permit, and she said that'd be fine.
I don't have a big hang up on the height of the fence either way. My only thing with fences is, not that this is a junkyard, but, you always see the junkyard, they require them to have a fence around it, and you can just always tell it's just a junkyard fence. So I don't know if the fence looks better, or the stuff behind it would've looked better, I don't know.
Well, and I think that leads into where I'm headed on it. I mean, if he wants to install an 8-foot fence, I'd hate to be the obstacle against that. But I'd rather him spend more money on a nicer 6-foot fence than the same amount of money on a less attractive 8-foot fence personally. But I don't have any real objection to the 8-foot fence. I guess I'd be okay. I mean, he's here. This is obviously a gesture of compliance, and he's here looking us in the eyeballs right now. I guess I'd be inclined to stipulate a minimum of 6 foot and a maximum of 8 foot, and let him be encouraged by that, I hope.
I'd like to encourage the applicant to put an 8-foot fence in the front.
Any other comments? So do we need to vote on the 8-foot or 6-foot, or do we just say, like he had stated it, a minimum of 6, maximum of 8? I mean, since 8's not within our,
6 to 8 feet is fine, and don't forget the public hearing.
68
oh,
feet.
yes.
Oh, whoops.
6 to 8 feet.
I'll have to be
Okay.
careful with those minutes.
Yes,
It's called
yes.
a wall.
Okay, so do we have any more
Have to be-
questions for
have to be part of your
Mr.
motion.
King? Because then I'll open and close the public comment. No? Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Okay, with no one willing to speak, we will close the public hearing. Okay, any discussion amongst the commission?
On the part about, not parking on the gravel part, what's the intent? Is it supposed to be keep from dust flying, or what?
My understanding as part of our pavement rules, as far as, the rules say that you can use gravel as long as it's well-maintained. I think the reason it's that way is because just last week, someone came in and complained and said, I got a ticket in the mail because I'm parking on my gravel and your code enforcement officer doesn't think it's gravel. And I said, why doesn't she think it's gravel? Well, there's a lot of grass and weeds and you can't really tell it's gravel anymore. And so I think part of the problem at this point is also why we have a pavement requirement. All it takes is a few rainstorms to start tracking out mud in the road. And once that gets into storm sewer, that creates expensive problems for the city. So if it's well-maintained gravel, you shouldn't have a lot of problems like that tracking out on the road. And that's my understanding of it. So it's up to you guys, you know, how to handle that gravel part. And I haven't been back there to see if it's well-maintained or not. And then to be fair, then I think it might be best to limit it to the paved area, but be able to use the gravel to access the garage door to get in and out of the building seems maybe fair.
Wanted to pave the whole thing, would I come back here or?
Paving it, you can do through our office. If you want to extend the storage yard onto a paved area, then you would come back and say, I'd like to amend my special use permit to include that area, if that's how it goes.
Yeah, and I guess in my mind, I mean, if he brings the gravel area into compliance, you know, as long as it satisfies
Sure.
the rules that exist, then,
Break out the Roundup, have some gravel on it.
you know.
Are you going to give him a time frame to complete this fence, or what's the?
Well, with our building permits that'll be issued, he has to be under construction of like the fence within 6 months. Now, I have a feeling that Mr. King will move a little quicker because there's some pending code enforcement issues, and when those aren't resolved quickly, they go to court. So I suspect that Mr. King will move a little quicker than other cases we have. So, and our code enforcement officer stays on top of these, so.
So,
Go ahead.
I can't support a 6-foot fence, and here's why. Because then it becomes precedence, there's something else, somewhere else, that we want to screen it, but we want to do a better job screening, then 6 foot probably would work. I personally like to see the 8 foot because I think it sets a bad precedence to say, here's another section of town, we're just gonna have a 6 foot there. We're gonna do something similar. So I can't support it unless it's 8 feet in the front, on the east side.
I will say that that is a bit of a difficult position, setting a precedent, because everything we see here is case by case and so different. So it's very hard sometimes to get another case and say, well, we did that over there when the
So you're
circumstances can
saying
be
we
so
don't,
different.
you don't see that on this commission, and somebody's saying you did that here, so.
Right, and only because so many cases are so different. We're gonna have some cases that do have similarities, but I think since I've been here, the bulk of them have just been so different that sometimes we can say, we did that there, but we're in a different situation here. Now, feel free to recommend 8 feet, that's just fine, but as far as setting a precedent, I wouldn't worry too much about that part, in my professional opinion.
Okay. Can 8 feet be 6 feet of board and 2 feet of lattice?
As long as it's structurally sound, whatever you guys would like to motion.
I just personally don't think in El Dorado it looks good to see vehicles sitting around close to
Sure.
Central.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I guess, I would entertain a motion either way, and whatever stipulations we wanna add to it, I suppose.
so?
I gotta pull up, see this.
Okay, I'll do it.
Go ahead.
I move to recommend approval of case number 1906 SUP, a request by Kevin King for a special use permit to allow a vehicle storage yard at 105 North Arthur Street for the reasons set forth in the staff recommendations and heard at the public hearing. Although with the suggestions that
With the
You had
condition, yeah.
Parking on the
Project.
pavement, and then we come back to the fence height, right?
Now's the time to decide the two, conditions.
I'll say a 6-foot fence. It would be nice if he put something on top of it, as far as that goes.
Minimum 6-foot fence.
Yes, minimum 6 foot,
Okay. Minimum opaque/privacy fence,
yes.
just so we have the
Yes.
detail.
Minimum,
Okay,
gotta be a privacy fence.
okay. And then would you guys like to address the parking areas? Just the paving area, the gravel area, or just that it has to stay in the screened area?
I think if he maintains the gravel, puts more gravel on it, looking at it there, it's gravel back behind it, that shouldn't be a problem.
Just maintain
So
the gravel.
limited to the screened area? Assuming the gravel's
Yes.
maintained, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 'cause I would say the paved area unless the gravel is maintained. But I don't know how we word that.
But just
Yeah,
so,
you should maintain the paved area, for sure.
Well,
But the ordinances already cover that.
exactly, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're stipulating something that's already stipulated.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, I'm not really arguing against it, I just don't think it's necessary.
Sure.
So we're adding 2 stipulations?
Yes.
Gerald, is that what you
Yes.
added?
Yes,
So to recap, we have the motion to approve with a minimum 6-foot privacy fence. Is that, okay? And limiting the vehicle storage to the screened area,
yes.
implied that it's on acceptable parking areas.
Yes.
All right, so that's what's on the table.
Okay.
so
Yep.
if they put a 6-foot, if we pass it, and he can put a 6-foot fence there, right?
Minimum 6 foot means that
Okay.
he could do the 6 or the 8. Yeah.
Okay,
I think you're gonna also need to stipulate if it's operable or inoperable, cause he's gonna wanna still park his daily driver outside of the screened area.
Well, and I think, and what we're trying to say is with the vehicle storage yard is his place for the inoperable
Inoperable,
vehicles.
yeah.
Right, so the regular rules would apply in front, where it's visible, where he would park his daily vehicle or friends, whatever the case may be. So yes, that would be the line that I spoke with our code enforcement officer, that anything broken down in front that's unregistered, inoperable would be fair game, if approved.
Okay, well, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Shivers, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Fellers,
no,
Commissioner Long,
No.
Commissioner McLaren,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes?
Chairman Tetrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes,
All right, 4-2, the motion to recommend with the 2 conditions passes, and we'll go forth to the city commission.
Thank you.
We will be in touch about that.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. Do we have any?
No old business.
Okay. Any staff items?
A couple things. I ran out of time to make a slide for it. As a follow-up, our last meeting, we reviewed for 114 West Central Avenue, the public assembly venue, the small church. The city commission reviewed that and approved it. There was one concern that came up at city commission about the radius around a religious institution where you can serve alcohol. And as far as they've told me everything's been resolved. There was one concern about if they approved it, could we have other restaurants come in downtown that could serve alcohol? But since I've been told that shouldn't be an issue, apparently there's some exemptions for central business districts in state law. So we learn something new every day. So you also probably saw, those of you that got my emails, Gerald and Brad, I apologize, I did not add this to your packet. We have right now a special meeting planned for October 8th. That's a Tuesday evening at the normal time. However, we will find out soon for sure if we'll have it or not. To further explain, Tim Crockett and his engineering firm They're representing two projects right now. One is the Orscheln's project that we saw tonight. It's a very simple one. All they require is a preliminary plat and then a final plat, and we're done with that. They are also representing a developer for part of our Greiler addition, which is at Norris and 6th Avenue, the northeast corner. There's a developer that's interested in replatting an area there and putting in some single-family homes. And so the original plan for October 8th was to do the final plat of the Orscheln's that we saw tonight. I have since found out that that final plat will not be prepared in time for the October 8th meeting. The bigger of the two projects that we were going to review that night was the preliminary plat and a planned development, which is similar to a rezoning for the project I just mentioned, which goes by Flint Creek, a single-family subdivision. So the planned development is basically it's an overlay district. It stays R1, and the planned development tweaks a few of the parts of it. I won't get into details about it because the night that we review it, I will tell you all about how it works. We haven't done one since I've been here in the last 5 years. So where I'm going with this is that they were rushing to get us the plans. We got them yesterday. There's some issues to work out, and so right now I think that, as it turns out, we will not have our October 8th meeting, despite their engineering firm working through a number of challenges, not on their staff, but physical challenges on the property. There's pipeline easements, there's oil pump jacks, and also requirements of the developer. So right now it's 50-50. I will certainly let you know soon whether to plan for it or cancel it, but as of today, it's starting to look like it's not going to happen. We will have a meeting October 24th, which is our regularly scheduled meeting, and that's when I believe we will see the final plat for the Orscheln's store that we saw tonight. And then we will most likely hear the planned development for Flint Creek. So that meeting might be a little bit longer, just because planned developments are a little bit more complicated than what we usually review. And Tim Crockett and or his engineer I've been working with will be here to of course, make a presentation on what they're proposing. So kind of confusing. We as a city are very pro-development, and so we want to work as much as we can to help these developers, especially on big projects like Orscheln's and this Flint Creek project, move forward. But sometimes things just get in the way and things get slowed down. So we got excited about hurrying up some meetings, and then found out, as it turns out, some of these plans just aren't quite ready yet. So with that, that's all I have.
Okay. With that, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
A second?
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.